All right, there we go. So we are at 1 minute. Hello, thanks for joining. And just so everybody knows, I am recording this video. It's going to be posted up to YouTube a little bit later on. I'll make sure that link gets out to everybody. We decided to skip the live stream. But I think that's about everybody. So you want to get started, Mark?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So this is the first SchemaHero community meeting. Curious to see how it goes, if there's like a lot of issues to talk about or what. Like it's, we're getting started a new project. So, just to start off, like would love any participation, any ideas. Like, it's a very early project. We're like super open to any feedback, and we'd love to, see if the project makes sense and continue to work with folks out there on it. So given that, I think, we have a little bit of agenda in the HackMD. I'm going to drop a link to it in the chat of the Zoom, just so everybody has it in case they missed it. I think the first one is from
Ling Wang. And that was on the next release focus.
Ling, I don't see Ling on here right now, though.
I was just about to ask.
If you want, let's move that to towards the bottom, and if Ling shows up, we can take it up then.
Okay.
Awesome. Yugabyte.
All right, so we'll move that one down to the bottom, and the next one was from Niraj, the next release focus. Niraj, or am I saying that right? I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Are they here?
I don't believe so.
Oh, well, is it anything that we can cover anyway?
Yeah, I think let's go ahead and chat about it, because we had an offline conversation, so I can share what I know so far. Last month we introduced support for CockroachDB, and there's an open PR that's like, I don't know, probably 6 months old or so in SchemaHero to introduce support for Yugabyte DB, which required Postgres and Cassandra support to be stable. Those are both stable now. The PR is probably a little bit dusty. May have some merge conflicts at this point. But the request was, this was from like someone at Yugabyte to see what it would take to get it prioritized and be able to get it merged in, and so that we could have official formal support for Yugabyte DB in the product.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody here has any experience with Yugabyte, any interest in Yugabyte DB. Cool.
Is Yugabyte DB like something proprietary? Like how would anybody test this?
So I think like the request came from the folks at Yugabyte, so we definitely should just reach out to them and talk to them about like testing infrastructure and test plans for how they would certify something like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's proprietary. It's like, it looks, from my understanding of it right now, it looks to be Postgres and Cassandra, where you can actually do either one or both of them at the same time. I think that it definitely makes sense if we have, like them, the Yugabyte team, interested in pushing it forward to do the work on it. The work looks to be relatively close to done. I think, Triva, you're adding a comment that you're going to reach out to them and follow up. Awesome.
Maybe this is like a separate item and I haven't gotten too far into it, but if I wanted to test this, like, do we have things that we run against each database provider to test it?
So there's pretty, like the integration tests today run, they spin up Cockroach, Postgres, MySQL, and SQLite in containers. One thing that would be somewhat interesting would be to be able to test it against some kind of a managed service, like a real production grade service, not like a spun up, hacked together, test infrastructure that may or may not actually match the latest version. that's out there and in the latest recommended configuration. Actually, that's a fair point. I don't know, that may be one of the big issues that we have to finish up on the Yugabyte support is getting full good end-to-end integration tests in to verify it works before we could release it.
Okay, any other feedback before we move on to our next agenda item? Going once, going twice. All right, so the next one is actually mine to decide the next meeting schedule. That one can certainly be moved to the bottom, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove that. And then next is Dimitri, yours, which is addressing issues that make SchemaHero hard to use or replicated. And you got a couple of sub points there. Do you want to take over?
Yeah, I think this is mostly related, like half of this is probably not related to SchemaHero, but more with our process. We currently don't automatically deploy migrations. They have to be manually approved. And it's really a pain point in managing. Migrations are hard to find. The ones that are not approved right now, they'll say 6 hours ago, but I know for a fact that some of them are a few months old and there's no way to remove them. So I get if we have some migration that somebody made changes to our schema and that person is no longer with us, but those changes were not critical. They don't really break anything. They were never applied, but everything is working. And so now those changes are sitting around, and they're in the tables that are modified, maybe modified again. And then those changes are merged into the future changes. And we can revert the code too, but still those migrations will be sitting around. I don't think SchemaHero will remove them. And there's no way to recalculate them, rebase them, or anything like that. And then the SchemaHero get migrations command itself takes a long time to run. Just super slow.
Yeah, this whole kind of class of issues there.
Yeah,
that
so it's I have a list of bugs that I would like to fix, basically is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, if they're bugs that you want to fix, you're welcome to.
Why aren't you?
No, I mean, I think it absolutely makes sense. I think it sounds like you're talking about issues around, performance at scale, and also the specific, the manual approval workflow, and kind of I think Replicate is probably unique in the fact that we've had it running in production for 18 months with the manual approval workflow, so we're running into problems that other folks haven't run into yet.
Yeah, and it's we can't really make this automatic. So somebody did make a good point. If my pull request has been approved and merged, then my migrations have been approved. This can be applied automatically. But with our flow currently, we don't automatically deploy to production. Once code is merged, we still have to go and click a button manually. So that puts us into this place where we have all these migrations sitting around and we have to dig through them manually.
And I mean, for what it's worth, huge fan of continuous delivery, but I think that SchemaHero continuing to support the manual approval of the actual generated DDL statements is a workflow that's important.
Yeah, I'm not saying we should remove it. I know there is also a switch that can turn it into an automatic,
right,
but we can't turn it on. We're stuck with the manual for now.
Yeah, I mean, I think cleaning up the workflow around long-lived migrations when you have manual workflows, so that it's performant when you run the list, or when there's a migration that's sitting out there for 3 months. And I know there's I don't know, workflows type changes that you should do so that you don't have sitting there pending migrations for 3 months. But if you do, it sounds like what you're saying is you actually get into the situation where they start to merge all together into one, so you can't deploy the later one without the earlier one.
Yeah. So if you have multiple changes in the same table definition that haven't been applied yet, they will be added to the future migration, and so you will end up with duplicate migrations as well, and then you have to manually deduplicate them.
Do you have enough? I think that sounds like a great one that we should tackle for the next release. Do you have enough information about or enough of a plan to how to fix it, or do you need to have a discussion about recommendations?
We have a discussion in messages in GitHub. I don't think we came to a definite conclusion, but there are definitely options.
Part of it should probably be to fix the recalculate command. You said it doesn't work, but there is a command. It just doesn't.
Yeah,
it's not implemented. I think.
Yeah, there are commands that don't work, are not implemented.
Great. So we're looking at a couple of the next bullet points here on the agenda are talking about the next release focus, which would be the 0.13 release. Dimitri, would you be up for taking a few of these, manual approval workflow type things? It doesn't have to be the full list of them, but starting to make progress on them so that we can include some of those fixes and improvements in 0.13?
Yeah, for sure. We can add them to our planning.
Great. I think there's a project board in Roadmap in GitHub, and we can add a 0.13 milestone there, and then grab the issues that you want to be able to tackle and just tag them for 0.13. And there's no schedule right now that we have a code freeze or we're planning to have 0.13 out next week or the week after. The goal will be in August though. So just grab the ones you want, and if you want to just add them to that milestone, that'd be great.
Okay.
All right. Any further comments before we move on to our next bullet point?
Something like 374, should that be a good first issue tag if Dimitri can't get to it?
That would be an excellent one. I'd be happy about that at least.
Yeah, I noticed we're doing a pretty good job of labeling them. So if new people want to contribute, we could probably add that to some of these.
I'm going to add the good first issue label to it right now.
Sweet.
Dan, I think we need to, I don't know if you already have permissions to the repo. If not, we should make you in the maintainers list here. So.
Okay. I don't think I am right now, but yeah.
Great.
And for anyone who's not familiar with our good first issue tag, that is something that I think GitHub as an organization participates in, but SchemaHero is also trying to jump in on that kind of bandwagon. Starter issues, basically. If you want to become a contributor to any of our open source projects, check out the good first issue tag. If you run into any hangups, you can reach out to me. I am the community manager for Replicated, or reach us on Slack, on the Kubernetes Slack, in SchemaHero, App Troubleshoot, or curl, or COTS, I believe, and we'll help you through it. But basically, good beginner way to become a GitHub contributor. So with that spiel, we're going to move on to our next point, which I believe is yours, Mark. Or did you just cover it? I think we're back to Ling Wang.
No, I think we still should talk about the 492 and 224. Okay. When we're thinking about what features we want to add in, what enhancements, there's still a lot of open requests and ideas that totally make sense. And so this is really like a conversation about prioritization. What's a feature that, we know that we or other people would use in SchemaHero in the next release? And a couple that came up, the first one here, 492, is creating databases, not just schemas. There's been a few folks posting tutorials on SchemaHero and walkthroughs, blog posts. And one of the things that most of them point out is that you have to manually create the database first, and then SchemaHero manages the schema of all the tables and everything inside that database. And there's there's not been a specific ask for, wow, SchemaHero should definitely do this. But I think I would describe it as most of the people creating tutorials say that they're surprised that SchemaHero doesn't do this. So I guess there's an expectation that it does. And it makes sense that it would to me. If you deployed a database, then the database doesn't exist. If it had credentials, why can't it just create it? I filed it as an issue and wanted to throw it out here to see if it made sense and if there's anything that we hadn't thought about before we tried to tackle that.
To create a database, you usually need a user with root access, or somebody has to create a user that is allowed to access database that doesn't exist. That's kind of maybe not functionality may not translate well between different databases, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, in the database custom resource right now, there's like a connection string, a URI, or you can use Vault or AWS SSM to provide those credentials. And like that, I think that's my number one concern too, is that best practice would be like least privilege. So somebody who's using SchemaHero to manage schema of a database should only have credentials in there that can manage the schema of the database that it has, not create additional databases. Do you have like thoughts? Like, is that something that we should tackle? Like, should we actually think about like providing a different way to pass credentials for create database that aren't tied to the custom resource?
My immediate thought is maybe like surfacing the errors to people. Like, if I can't create a database, right? You can always attempt to create a database. And if you can't, then users need to somehow know that that's the issue, not like, why is my schema not showing up?
So like that, you're saying basically assume like attempt anyway to create the database using the URI provided. And if it doesn't have permission, just make sure we show like a really good output in the CLI that says, no permissions or something to that effect.
Something, yeah. Or like it could also be a migration, like creating database could be a migration. Like if database doesn't exist, make a migration that creates database, and then the status of that migration could be failed or something like that.
Interesting. Totally makes sense. At a high level, this issue of 492 for creating databases, is it one that you think we want to tackle for the next SchemaHero release? Or we can actually go through a couple of the other issues because we're not going to be able to tackle them all. And so picking one without knowing what the choices are can sometimes be a little bit difficult.
I got to say, I've never seen a migration. Well, no, I take it back. I have seen migrations fail, and all we see is that they don't have a timestamp on the applied column.
There's no like status output in the CLI.
No, there's nothing. And you have to go look at the logs possibly. I haven't really dealt with failed migrations that much, but there's probably something lacking in schema here in terms of error reporting.
Yeah. Just quick looking, there may be an issue. Hopefully there's an issue. If not, we definitely should create an issue to track that and make sure that, it's just easier to debug because, you could have, like, just in general, it doesn't always have to be permission related, but you might specify like a column type that's invalid or like depend on some kind of add-on that's not installed in Postgres or something like that. Cool. Great. Dimitri, would you be willing to write up that issue and in the repo? You don't have to work on it or anything like that. I'm not asking for that, but just describe the issue of like, making failed migrations output easier to debug, or at the very least, just knowing that it failed. Like the absence of a timestamp shouldn't imply failure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. So I think that's a candidate for the 013 release. There's a couple more though. One is managing seed data. This is an older issue, 224. And I know this is an issue that like we have it replicated, and I don't know if it's popular or not. It had a couple of extra comments in the issue, which is one of the reasons we brought it back up. And that's to be able to, when you specify the table, just specify default data. Like this is one of the areas I think where if we don't have this functionality in it, traditional database migration tools can insert data. So you end up with a challenge where somebody wants to adopt SchemaHero to migrate or to manage schema, but they have some seed data. Now they need to actually adopt two tools in order to do it, not just one. Not much to really, I don't know if anybody has any questions about that.
I'm familiar with the tickets a little bit, but also it feels heavily tied to just data migrations in general. Like how's seed data different from data
Yeah.
migrations.
It's a good point. It's not. And the next item, well, the next top level item from Ling Wang is around data migrations, stating it's a roadblock from adopting SchemaHero because of a different pipeline, literally the exact same problem. So yeah, I think you're right. They're the same issue. I don't think we even have a solid proposal on how we're going to do data migrations. Like personally, like I love the idea. I think it 100% makes sense to have it in SchemaHero, but how to do it, how to think about, you know, migrating a column type, for example, or like, you know, even when you have to do transformations where you have to, like, you know, you want to insert a new column and it's going to be calculated based on other data that's in the database. How do you specify that?
And we have plenty of cases where we had to use Go to migrate data. So not just SQL, but some other programming language.
Yeah. I mean, I love this idea. I think it totally makes sense. Ling Wang's not on to discuss. Like, I'm curious if they put any thought or ideas into, like, you know, requirements or implementation details or schema, or how they would actually choose, like, to specify it to be compatible. Yeah, I don't know what the best next steps are.
Do you want me to try to reach out on GitHub, see if I can get some info?
Yeah, I think that would be great. Just like, we'd love to tackle the issue. I don't want to duplicate any effort that's happening, and I don't want to, like, I think right now, if we tackle the issue, we have a really basic understanding of what the issue is and totally agree with it. But there's probably, like, generally more nuance and specifics, and making sure that anything that we are able to add does solve their use case also.
Got it.
Thanks, Jada.
Okay, so if there's no other feedback, questions, comments, going to move on to mine. Mine is very simple, of course. Just asking when the best time is for us to have our next SchemaHero meeting. I know that some of you are international, and just wanted to make sure that everyone feels accommodated. Is this time okay, or would you suggest anything earlier or later? Any feedback?
This time is probably pretty.
Yeah, I'm guessing people who are not here would have some feedback about it.
Probably so. As a matter of fact, that's probably true. So if you're watching this later on YouTube, then leave a comment if you want to join our next meeting, but this time doesn't work for you, and I'll try to figure out something. So how's that sound? I guess you can't say anything because you're not watching it yet. And that's all I have. So next up is open floor. If there's anything else that you would like to discuss about SchemaHero or about replicated open source projects in general, now's the time to do it. So go for it.
I have a totally random and unimportant thing. I was just thinking about, like, tags and good versus issue stuff. Hacktoberfest is coming up, and I don't know how much success we had with, like, the CNCF contributions, but, you know, that could be something we could start thinking about, adding tags so we don't have to do, like, a mad push, like, at the end of September. It's so weird. It's all, like, July's almost over. So just starting to think about getting that stuff in place.
I mean, you know, the experience we had, we participated in the CNCF bug bash during KubeCon EU, and it was great. You know, I mean, there was quite a bit of contributions. I think we included them in the latest release. Actually, like, really good turnout. Like, I think the contributions were really high quality too.
Yep, I know we had, I think, either 13 or 18 from one person alone. So yeah, we had a good response for the bug bash.
It helps if we can offer, like, you know, these internet points, and the Hacktoberfest maybe a way to, like, somebody else is offering them, and, like, you know, we get, like, it makes the project better. So
absolutely. And there's chocolate.
One of the things that helped with that, Dan, was we worked with introducing some static code analysis and linting tools that created issues specifically based on what they found, so that, you know, participants didn't have to, like, fully understand the entire project end to end, and they were still able to make meaningful contributions. I don't know if we still have those tools installed in the repo or not. We should.
All right. Anyone else?
I have one other small ask, and that's that, you know, we've been in the sandbox for about 6 months, and so we have about 6 months more until our first annual review. And one of the things that we'd love to be able to do is to have folks who are willing to like share in the repo that they're using the project, so that we can include them in the annual review, like a couple of organizations, even if it's, you know, any kind of capacity. Obviously, like, you know, massive production capacity would be great, but even like running it in specific workloads. So if we can have like, maybe we should add like an adopters MD file into the repo, Triva, and how can we start to get anybody outside of replicated, because I know like we have a good turnout here and we'd probably put our name in it, but anybody else who's willing to like say that they're using it would be good to start listing.
Yes, sounds good. I'm sorry I wasn't able to speak up. Just writing that down. And I will put that on our agenda for follow-up in our next meeting, which will be happening in 30 days. Or do we want to do this quarterly?
I think that we should do it every month right now, even though, you know, the project's still kind of getting off the ground, and like it's not a huge turnout, but quarterly just feels like really hard to influence. If you miss one, you kind of you're out for a long time.
Got it. Okay. So a follow-up on that in 30 days. Is there anything else that we'd like to follow up on in the next meeting? You don't have to write it out right now. We're going to still be working off this same file. And I'll go ahead and start the agenda as soon as we're finished with this meeting. But if there's anything you want me to write down now, like,
yeah,
throw it out. Anyone? Bueller?
Hi, this is Rain with Cockroach Labs, and I just wanted to say hello and thank you. And I just read about some hooks you have with our database, so I'll be playing over the next month, and I look forward to seeing what it looks like. Yeah, Triva and I worked together in another project a few years ago, and she reached out and let me know about the hook, and I was like, oh, hello, why don't we know more? So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we definitely appreciate the help that the Cockroach Labs team gave us on getting the support in and promoted a little bit too, and actually just making sure that we were solving the right problems there. So
yeah.
And thank you so much, Rain, for joining in. I know that the time difference is pretty drastic right now. So I really appreciate you coming in and giving your feedback.
I'm off camera right now because I'm in Detroit, literally right now. So I'm very jet lagged, but yes, I'll be moving to the US time zone in 3 weeks permanently. But I still think it's a good idea to have a more flexible meeting time to accommodate Europe and APAC anyway. I appreciate the thought.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll get out probably a Google form to everyone who's on the meeting right now, whose email addresses that I have. And I'll also be looking for feedback in our YouTube comments to see if I can come up with something better.
great.
All right. So any other open floor comments, questions, feedback, sea chanties, anything? All right. Well, we made really good time, stopping at 2:31 on the dot. So I'm going to give you a half an hour back. Thank you all so much for joining, and we will all see you next month, hopefully. And until then, I hope that you have a great month. thank you all for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.